This week, there was a story in the Santa Fe New Mexican that caught our attention here at New Mexico in Focus. Here's the title. Candidates' emphasis on origins reflects an obsession with native pedigree in Santa Fe. That's the headline. It made us wonder how much it really matters whether a candidate is local, both in Santa Fe and other communities, of course, here in New Mexico. And Inez, I do want to start with you on this one. Can I just say this? I thought it was a brave piece. I thought it was really like, I was reading this going, wow. Someone's actually saying this out loud in a newspaper. It was awesome. What's been the reaction from folks up there?
People have enjoyed talking about it, and it's been a talk story.
Yeah.
What happened is our candidates always write my views, which is what we call them in the opinion section, saying vote for me because. And one of the editors noticed that one of the big reasons they gave is, I'm from here, I grew up here, my grandfather homesteaded here. So that led him to talk about the importance of it. And the broader discussion is, in the words of our former mayor, Debbie Jaramillo, they didn't want a lot of people who were just off the bus in politics.
Her famous term back then.
Her famous
yes.
term. But in reality, lots of people off the bus have been elected to office in Santa Fe, contribute all the time. So being a local is kind of like having a college degree or 3 beautiful children that you show in your picture. It's just one more attribute.
Right.
And we actually have a Santa Fe school board where not one person on the school board ever went to a Santa Fe public school or is from Santa Fe.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So it can just work for you or not be important at all, depending on the race.
You know, Stephen, it's interesting. I don't live in Santa Fe, so it's hard for me to judge. And I have to say, though, I don't care where you live in this world. You're running for office. There is such a thing as bona fides. It doesn't matter. Here in Albuquerque, Deming, you must know something, it would seem to me, about where you're serving. But that begs the question, how important is that once you hold office? Is that just a thing for running for office? Does that really mean something after you get the thing?
I mean, first of all, I think I qualify as just off the bus because I've only been in New Mexico for 15 years.
There you
go.
But,
you know, I think you see it even in national elections. I mean, Romney had, I think, 4 home states last time.
Right. That's right.
Hillary Clinton had 3 home states. And I personally, I don't see anything wrong or improper about arguing that you grew up in a place, you lived in a place, you know the place. I think
but can you claim some credit for what your granddad did?
Well,
is that fair
I think
game?
you've put your finger on it. Like if you say, well, my parents are from here.
Yeah.
And their parents are from here, and I can trace my roots back to Spain. And gee, you know, that means I'm of European ancestry. And you're saying that in a majority-minority state. I think now you're raising an issue that, and according to Professor Gabriel Sanchez, who I've had on my show, I know he's been on your show, I mean, this appeals to some people.
That's right.
But the flip side is also, like Hillary Clinton was running on being the first female president.
That's
well, it seems like that kind of identity politics didn't work. She ended up turning off women, she's losing women, and she's losing young people. So I think identity politics there's 2 sides to that coin.
Laura, there was an interesting point in the Santa Fe New Mexican piece that a quote that I really got a lot out of. In essence, it says, "Can I trust you?" is what folks are saying when they say, "I'm from here." And does that make sense to you? Does that trust factor mean anything for somebody that's been around for a long time versus
I mean,
just
I'm
off
sure
the
that
bus,
some
as they say?
people, and I think the person who was quoted interpreted it that way, but I don't necessarily think that's always what's being asked. It's more, you know, how do I know you? What is the what's the relationship here? What, you know, and it's something I think that is unique to New Mexico. Like I do, having lived in other, you know, I was educated out of state, Arizona, California. I lived in Boston. I've lived in Rhode Island. This kind of give me your pedigree, not from an educational standpoint, but from a who I literally got asked at the first job as an attorney by other colleagues, who's your dad? When I started,
Really?
Who's your father? Because my last name was Sanchez, and they wanted to know which Sanchez they needed to be, you know, good to or whatever. It was the most bizarre question. Nobody in California, in LA, at UCLA asked me who my dad was. You know, it was absurd to me.
But is that special? Is that a special thing about us? Is that something maybe to be proud of?
Sure, it's special. I'm not proud of that. No,
Okay.
I think for somebody who, you know, I grew up in Deming, yes, but I left for a while and came back. So I see some of these issues sometimes. You know, sometimes it is a way to divide and sort of say, okay, you're not one of us because you don't have that pedigree. You know, your parents didn't come here from Spain, you know,
just
or whatever it is. Like, I think in some ways it's a little
My
much.
next point.
I do think it's particularly in an election year in Santa Fe that sort of thing is hyped up even
Sure,
more.
sure.
But that's often the politics there.
Yeah.
But I do, I ran for a little while for a state rep seat in Tucson. Nobody ever asked me where I was from, who my parents were, that sort of thing. It was,
Right.
everybody there was from somewhere else, and
Sure.
they really looked at your ideas. And here, it's like, who are your parents? How long have you been here? It's very, or what high school did you go to? That's the next question, right? And it's sort of putting people in a relationship box. And I think that it works for some people, and for some people, it can really. It can mean not being one of us, sort of being excluded from that club.
Janice, I wonder if folks, listening to Laura mention that, do some folks use this as a cudgel, as a weapon? I'm from here, you're not. Bam. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, and their degrees. And
Yeah.
I didn't come to New Mexico until I was 11, and make no mistake.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot give you that 400-year pedigree.
Sure.
But there's another side to this, and that's the carpetbaggers. So one of the things that's unique about New Mexico is we actually expect our representatives and our electeds to live in the district in which they serve. And so I don't like the folks who move in 6 months in advance to go and run.
Right.
But after 2 years, I figure the area and what we need. And the worst economic development statement I ever hear is we have to keep our kids here. Please send them someplace else. They need to know not only what is good out there, but what is bad, and bring it back. And all of this kind of plays in there. But I do believe, especially in Santa Fe and northern New Mexico, this pure Hispanic pedigree is used to cut people out, and as opposed to bringing people in. And I think if you haven't got that 400-year pedigree, you're very uncompetitive.
I think it's less about cutting people out as belonging, and you have to think about people who've had their land taken,
Yes.
their businesses taken,
Thank you.
Anglo lawyers, Anglo
That's right.
bankers, all that
That's
kind of
right.
stuff.
Santa Fe ring.
So what you have is political power, and you keep it. And it's one way of saying we're still in charge. And we always have to remember that even if Hispanics have been here 400 years, and I have 16 generations on my mother's side, and I am very proud of it. But my husband's people have lived at Taos Pueblo for 1,000 years, so he can always up me. So we have to remember that we have lots of layers of history.
Thank
in
you for
Santa Fe.
saying that. That came out actually in the comments section on your piece. Somebody down in the comments is like, wait a minute. How do we explain to Native American folks about who was here first?
I would say, but one of the nicest things, so I am in China on a bluff, and here comes some Americans, very clear.
Yeah.
They're from Las Cruces. Inside
Oh, wow.
of 2 questions, we knew people in
Yes.
common. That is just one of the most unique, charming things
Yeah.
about our state, and I hope it never changes.
That's cool. Let me go back to Inez for one quick thing, though. You mentioned Debbie Jaramillo, and I'm wondering if there's an echo effect here between Ms. Jaramillo and her brother, of course, at the time. Are Santa Feans maybe just a little bruised still from that situation? Because that was pretty wild back then.
Actually, her hiring her brother-in-law as the city manager.
Brother-in-law, that's right.
I mean, her brother is the city manager. Her brother-in-law was the police chief. Not necessarily because everyone respected Ike.
Okay.
And he was a rational, good government guy. So people were actually thrilled because they knew she had someone she could trust, and who also was going to do a good job because he'd been Sam Pick's person as well.
That's right, too. Previous Mayor Pitt.
So
right?
it was
That's
very,
right.
it's a very complicated place. And
I'm remembering that old boy who carved the Jaramilloville sign.
Yeah.
And said, remember that back then,
Yes,
Stephen? I don't know if you saw it. It was just one of those things
would
back
say,
then.
but
Everybody
it was-
survived, though. Santa Fe
I
survived.
have my
and,
Jaramilloville mug still.
I would say, but she was colorful.
Yes, she was.
She was colorful.
And she did a lot of really interesting things.
That's right.
She did.
This is one of the reasons we love Santa Fe, actually, is stuff
Yeah.
like this. Now, I would like to take a few more minutes for one more topic. This week, we learned that Jay McCluskey, a close advisor to Governor Martinez, will not face charges in a grand jury investigation into fundraising and spending for the governor's 2010 inauguration. Now, we've been here before. During the Richardson administration, there was an investigation to pay-to-play allegations. Seemed like charges might be filed against someone close to the governor, but it didn't happen. I don't want to rehash the details here, certainly, but we do want to note, Janice, I'll start with you, that Mr. McCluskey was cleared, and during that time, we certainly, took him over the coals for the allegations back then. What's your sense of it? That my goal here is to talk about trust in the electorate, meaning he may be cleared, but does this leave some kind of bad taste for the rest of us and how we see transparency and all that kind of thing?
Well, I think there will be a sting, and he was, the discussion seemed to be about the inaugural, and that was a really fuzzy area.
Right.
The real meat of it probably was the investigation of license plates. But that's going no place either,
right.
and quite frankly, he had nothing to do with that.
Right.
And so there was a lot of misdirection. But do I think this adds to the distrust of the political operative community? Yes, and it's well deserved.
What do you think?
Well, one of the things that I, as an attorney, take a little bit of issue with on the articles is that they both sort of suggested that the grand jury had decided not to indict. And actually what happened is that it didn't ever get to a vote of the grand jury. There were investigations that happened, there were subpoenas, and then there's rumors about the fact that basically the Justice Department internally decided not to move forward with actually presenting it to the grand jury. So that's a very different
Key
kind of,
distinction,
right,
yeah.
and that means, I mean, it's different than having everything presented to the grand jury
That's right.
and having the grand jury vote up or down and then it coming out as there wasn't enough from the grand jury's perspective. And I think a lot of that makes it, very fuzzy. And so the headlines, I think, were somewhat misleading, but of course, the headlines, in defense of course, the journalists, are basically taking the quotes from Mr. McCluskey's attorney,
That's right.
Paul Kennedy.
That's right.
I mean, and he's the
He's the only person quoted,
only
yeah.
person talking because, of course, Justice Department
can.
doesn't comment on ongoing investigations.
But we'll never know,
So they
will we?
cannot
Yeah.
know. Well, I don't think officially, unless there's some
Yeah.
leaks, which there could be. But I think what's interesting about this case, I agree about, it's bad for the political operatives of the state, but it also speaks to, should we have some rules about inaugurations? Like how do you raise that money? And I think the connection between that and the Racino, the Downs issue, I think is
right.
there's still something there for me. And I find it kind of puzzling that McCluskey hasn't said anything. I mean, we've seen the governor say something about this, but he has not actually said anything, which I find really problematic. I mean, why is she speaking for him?
Right.
I think, it should be him, and she's still sort of protecting whatever he brings to her
Sure.
campaign and to her overall administration.
Sure, interesting. And let's pick up on that perception issue, if you would. Does it mean that, put it this way, during the Richardson time, he was cleared, but we had an interesting quote from the, I forget the person in charge of these things, of their official title, but saying, basically, we think there's something here, but there's really not quite enough. It was kind of an out-of-bounds statement, as a matter of fact. It was really kind of unfair to the governor. But again, this perception issue, go ahead and pick up on that, if you would.
I think perception kind of depends on who wins the spin more after, because the governor has been very clear that in her mind, Jay McCluskey was accused by disgruntled former employees and by political enemies, and he was an angel who did nothing wrong. The other side of it is we don't know if there's not enough evidence to go forward, but they think there's something there. We don't know if it was completely made up and there was nothing there and a good man has been slandered.
That's right.
We don't know because it's
Either
secret.
way.
And that's the trouble with secret investigations is that you don't know. And all we know is that, yes, you were investigated and it didn't quite rise to this level for one reason or another. So if Jay McCluskey, orchestrates a sweep of the House and the Senate and becomes the most brilliant political consultant in the world, probably no one's going to remember this in the same way they would as if people mistrust him now and mistrust what he says for candidates. They've already used that, you're a Jay McCluskey back candidate, you can't be trusted.
That's right.
So if that works as an attack from Democrats or even other Republicans who aren't in their favorite list, then perhaps it will stain him.
Interesting there. Steve, what do you think about this? From backing up the lens a little bit, obviously Mr. McCluskey has a certain type of a job to do. These people exist. They exist for a reason. They do this job, and we accept it, but at the same time, we're always very squishy about the job. Do you know what I mean? They're part of the landscape,
Jay is
but
someone
yeah.
everybody loves to hate because he's been so successful. Actually, he's called the shadow governor.
That's right.
If you want to look at his success, look at the Republican House. The first time in 40 years. He took out Tim Jennings, who opposed the Martinez administration. He took out Andy Nunez when Nunez didn't follow this. So he's been a very, very shrewd operative.
Right.
And actually, I'm very glad we're doing this segment because so often, the rumors about he might get indicted, everybody reads, but the fact that he wasn't, people don't hear about. So I think it's great that we're doing it. It was essentially a quid pro quo case, I think. As Laura said, there were people trying to get the Downs Racino lease, all right? They offered to give money for the inaugural. I don't know if they gave the money or didn't give the money. Some of them gave the money later. Without a witness, without a tape, without an email,
right.
that's a very, very difficult case to prove.
That's right.
I'm glad there wasn't provable criminal conduct here in New Mexico, and I wish Jay McCluskey well. I'm sure he went through a terrible time going through all.
That's all the time we have. Join us online as we look at who's running and who's not this election year here in New Mexico. I'm Gene Grant. Thanks for joining us this week for New Mexico in Focus. As always, we appreciate your time and effort to stay informed and engaged. We'll see you next week in Focus. Get a preview of what's coming up on the next New Mexico in Focus. It's easy. Sign up for our weekly email at newmexicoinfocus.org.